You know what I miss? MP3 players. These things. These bad boys. Yeah. Now this is my last MP3 player I ever had. And sadly, it doesn't work anymore. It got smashed, as you can see. The screen got smashed. Look at that. Look at that crack. Yeah. Sadly, it doesn't work anymore. Screen smashed. And yeah. But I miss MP3 players. MP3 players were so simple, easy to use. They were so great back in the day to just listen to music, you know? Because all you needed to do was just download some MP3s from the internet and put them on there, and then you could listen to them. You didn't need anything else, you know? You didn't need to download a music app in order to play them. You didn't need to have minutes or service on your phone in order to play them. You didn't need an internet connection in order to play them. All you needed was the player itself, you know, the MP3 player itself, and, you know, the MP3s that you would get from the internet, most likely. And that's all you needed. And it was much, much simpler, you know. Much simpler. And I miss those days. I miss when, you know, MP3 players were a thing. You know, MP3 players were basically the cheaper versions of the you know, the iPods and the iPod touches and stuff like that. You know, they basically were, you know, MP3 players were the poor man's iPods in a way. But yeah, I miss him. I miss him to death. Because it was just, like I said, it was so much easier back then. And yeah. And they also didn't just play music as well, you know. There was a bunch of other features as well with MP3 players. Like, for example, mine had an AM FM radio player on it, you know, where you could listen to the radio if it, you know, came in, the signal came in and everything. And that was really cool. And I think a lot of them had that. But yeah, that was really cool. Because you know how much I love analog, you know, AM FM radio. You know how much I love that. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And also a lot of them also had, I think mine also had a video player on it, a little video player, and that you could watch videos. Obviously not big videos, like they had to be really small videos in size and whatnot. But yeah, it had a video player on it too. I never did that. I never used that part because I never really watched videos on it. And mine also had as you can probably see, a camera. That's another thing I don't think I ever used. I might have used it once. But yeah, it has a little camera on it. I think it could just take pictures on it and you could just put them on there. But yeah, that's another thing. You also just put pictures on there and look at them if you wanted to. It had that. But yeah. And also, another cool feature, I think a lot of these MP3 players had this as well. As you can see, that little slot right there. A little mini SD card slot. Yeah, you could put a little mini SD card in there and, you know, you could put more music than what was already on there. You know, it could hold even more now, you know, more than 4 gigs. Yep. Mine was 4 gigabytes. But yeah. And you could hold more songs. But yeah. But speaking of that, that was only kind of the downside to these things is the space. They could only hold so much. Even with the mini SD card reader thing, you know, slot. Even with that, they could only hold so much. You only had so much space on it. And that was the only real downside to these things. Is, you know, sometimes you would run out of room for all your songs and stuff. And like I say, you find a new song that you really like and you download the MP3 and everything, and you want to put it on here as well, you would have to actually go into your thing and delete some stuff, delete some music off of there, you know, to make room for the new song, or the new songs even. Sometimes it was multiple new songs you found. So yeah, you'd have to do that. So you would have to go in there and look for stuff that you don't really listen to, but it's on there for some reason. And yeah, you had to be really selective with what you put on here, Put your favorites, put your stuff you really listen to a lot, stuff you want to listen to a lot. You would have to be really, selective about, what you put on here. What music you put on here, what you want on here, that sort of thing. And yeah, that was a little annoying sometimes, the space issues, the how much it only holds so much thing. That was a little annoying, but it really wasn't that big of a problem. Because sometimes a problem I have with Spotify is there's, yes, an almost endless amount of stuff, an endless amount of music and stuff you can listen to on Spotify. But because of that, that is a good thing, but also it kind of is a bad thing too, because that means there's too much to listen to. You would be endlessly scrolling trying to find something to listen to, and yeah, there's just too much to listen to sometimes with Spotify and other music apps and stuff. So sometimes having more of a selective whatever, less to choose from. That's the word. Less to choose from was better, at least in my opinion, a little bit. You had less to choose from. You didn't have to, scroll through a bunch in order to find something. You had, you only had so much to choose from. And in a way, like I said, yeah, it's kind of a bad thing, but it's also kind of a good thing, at least to me. But yeah, but I miss them. I miss MP3 players. I miss those days. And I really hope that these things don't get phased out. I hope MP3 players don't get phased out. Sadly, or thankfully, I don't think they have yet. I think they are still being sold, especially online. You can still find them online and online stores, Amazon, stuff like that. And you can also still find them in physical stores too, because if you know where to look, like Walmart and whatnot, you can also find them there. So they're still being sold, but I still hope that they never get completely phased out, because I understand that they're not as, relevant or popular anymore with people, MP3 players, and that's sad. So I really hope that they don't get phased out. Like they've completely phased out CD players and CDs in general. Like, I hope that doesn't happen with MP3 players. But you never know, I guess. And yeah. So yeah, MP3 players. Simpler time, and I miss them. And honestly, I might actually, if I could find a really good one online, I might actually buy me a new one, so I can actually go back to these days a little bit and listen to music, and not have to worry about having a phone, or having minutes or service, or downloading a music app, or any other stuff that I talked about. So yeah, I might actually buy me a new MP3 player maybe and start listening to them again. But yeah, MP3 players. A simpler time. Time I miss. And I miss them dearly. And yeah.